Fear is the most honest teacher you will ever know. It does not flatter you. It does not pretend to be your friend. It does not disguise its intent with warm smiles or soft voices. Fear confronts you with your own reflection, unfiltered, unarmed, and unprepared. And this is why the man who is unafraid is not brave, but blind. The brave man is the one who looks fear in the face and learns from it. For fear strips away illusions. It shows you what you truly care about, what you truly depend on, and what you are willing to protect at all costs. When a man is afraid, he reveals his priorities more clearly than in any speech. If you wish to know another's soul, watch what they guard when they panic. The coward clings to comfort. The weak run to false security. But the cunning man, he studies the terrain, he calculates risk, and then he moves with deliberate violence. Because he knows this secret, fear is a signal, not a sentence. A prince who has never feared cannot be trusted. He has never had to choose between humiliation and strategy, between chaos and order. He has not been tested, and untested men are liabilities, not assets. The throne does not require courage, it requires cunning. It is better to be feared than loved, not because fear is pleasant, but because it is reliable. Love fades with time. It bends to mood, to gossip, to envy. But fear holds steady. It compels. It endures. It keeps your enemies awake at night and your allies in line during the day. Fear makes memory sharp. A man who fears you will not forget what you said. He will not misplace your warning. He will not mistake your silence for weakness. This is the truth the sentimental man cannot stomach. He wants to believe in fairness, in justice, in kindness. He wants to believe the world rewards virtue. But virtue without force is decoration. It is a dagger without a blade. Let us speak plainly. You are scared because you still have something to lose. That is power. That is leverage. A man with nothing to lose is a beast, unpredictable and dangerous. But a man who knows exactly what he's afraid of, that is a strategist. That is a ruler in the making. Fear clarifies the stakes. It strips away distractions. It forces the mind to focus on survival, adaptation, and advantage. When you are afraid, you stop pretending, you stop explaining, you start observing, you start listening. And if you are clever, you begin to move, not toward safety, but toward position. The battlefield is not for the fearless, it is for the precise. The man who uses his fear to sharpen his senses survives longer than the one who ignores it. Those who ridicule fear are often hiding their own. They boast loudly, seeking applause to silence the tremor in their gut. But the wise man is quiet. He does not dismiss fear, he analyzes it. He does not share it, he weaponizes it. He does not flee from it, he extracts from it a plan. Imagine a storm. The fool builds a tent and prays. The wise man digs into the mountain, studies the wind, and reroutes the river. That is power, not in resisting nature, but in bending it. So too with fear. You do not eliminate it, you redirect it. You turn it into caution, into preparation, into ruthless timing. Fear tells you where your weaknesses are, it tells you where you must fortify, and it tells you who you will become if you fail. Now observe the pattern. Every great betrayal begins with fear. Every collapse of loyalty, every broken alliance, every sudden silence in the court, it all starts when someone becomes afraid. And what do they fear? Exposure, irrelevance, replacement. Understand this, and you can manipulate any room you walk into. You don't need to threaten. You only need to remind. A glance, a pause, a single delayed word. Let their imagination do the rest. Because fear doesn't need loudness, it needs silence. That's where it grows. In ambiguity, in uncertainty, in the unknown. And the man who can master that atmosphere, he controls the game. He doesn't fight battles. He makes others beg to avoid them. This is why being scared is the best thing that could happen to you. It means you are awake. It means the stakes are real. It means you are standing on the edge of something that matters. Do not run from it. Study it. Trace it to its source. Who are you afraid of? Why? What could they take from you? What have you made too precious? Where have you grown soft? These are not philosophical questions. They are strategic ones. And the man who answers them honestly becomes dangerous. Not because he eliminates his fear, but because he now owns it. Because he now walks into the room with it beside him, not behind him. And everyone can feel that difference, especially your enemies. They will test you. They will speak softly to confuse you. loudly to intimidate you. They will offer friendship to disarm you, and kindness to bind you. But your fear, your precious, intelligent fear, will see through them if you trust it, if you listen to it, if you learn its language. You see, fear is not weakness. Fear is knowledge delivered with urgency. It is your instinct dressed in armor, and when harnessed, it becomes more useful than any sword. The man who feels no fear is either too stupid to understand danger or too arrogant to prepare for it. Both die quickly, but the man who studies his fear survives. He adapts. He strikes with precision, not emotion. He becomes what others only pretend to be, powerful. And so you must stop resenting your fear and begin refining it. Like a sculptor chiseling away at raw stone, you must shape the terror until only clarity remains. When you feel the quickening in your chest, the tightening of your breath, do not mistake it for panic. It is awareness. It is the soul snapping awake. In that moment, you are more alive than the numb masses sleepwalking through their routines. You are confronting life as it is, volatile, indifferent, and full of consequence. The average man anesthetizes himself with entertainment, with routine, with meaningless rituals to silence this alarm. But the prince does not seek silence. He seeks signal, and fear is signal, pure and unfiltered. If you are to lead, to dominate, to rule, not just others but yourself, you must become fluent in fear's dialect. Each tremor, each doubt, each flicker of anxiety is data. It tells you where your enemies might strike. It tells you where you've grown complacent. It tells you what you are still unwilling to let go of. Pay attention, because the man who ignores fear walks into traps he could have seen coming. And the man who brags about having none invites destruction with a smile on his face. There is no virtue in blindness. There is only death. But fear grants vision, an eerie, lucid kind of sight that shows you every weakness in the castle walls, every crack in the mask of your enemies, and most importantly, every lie you tell yourself. Let's speak now of your reputation, your image, the theater of power. Many believe it must be one of confidence, of impenetrable certainty, that to inspire fear in others, you must appear fearless yourself. But this is shallow, a performance. True authority radiates from the man who has already conquered his own fear, not hidden it, not denied it, but dissected it, studied it, and turned it into discipline. His stillness is not the absence of fear, but the presence of control. He walks slowly because he has measured the terrain. He speaks quietly because he knows noise is weakness. He does not react, not because he is numb, but because he already forecasted the game 3 moves ago. The crowd calls this courage, but in truth, it is calculation rooted in fear, perfected by experience. Do not forget, every empire that collapsed, every dynasty that crumbled, every general who fell because of ignored fear. They thought themselves invincible. They believed their power permanent. They mistook obedience for loyalty, applause for security, and so they dismissed the warnings. They surrounded themselves with flatterers. They dulled the voices of dissent. They ignored the small signals, the uneasy silence, the tightened smiles of allies. This is how destruction enters, not through force, but through negligence. The wise ruler studies not just the faces of his enemies, but the silence of his friends. Fear does not just tell you who wants to kill you, it tells you who no longer needs you, and that is often more dangerous. The man who uses fear properly is never surprised. That is his edge. While others are shocked by betrayal, by collapse, by misfortune, he nods in silence. He saw it coming. He planned for it. He gave no warning. Because power is not in what you say, it is in what you already know. Let your fear show you the storm, but let your discipline decide when you raise the sails. This is not paranoia. This is prudence. A man ruled by fear is weak, but a man who rules with fear, both within and without, is unshakable. He does not react to threat. He provokes it, measures the response, and strikes only when the cost is low and the reward permanent. Now listen carefully. You are not being hunted, not yet, but you are being watched. Always, your competitors, your rivals, your so-called friends, they all observe your movements. They look for hesitation. They look for emotional tells. They look for softness. And the moment you pretend fear doesn't exist, they know you are bluffing. They will wait until your delusion creates a gap, until your false confidence becomes a pattern. Then they strike. This is why self-awareness is not some poetic ideal. It is survival. To know what you are afraid of and to admit it to yourself before anyone else does, is to seize power over your own story. The man who cannot do this becomes a puppet in someone else's. So I ask you now, what are you scared of? And more importantly, what are you doing with that fear? Are you letting it keep you still, or are you letting it sharpen your movement? Are you hiding from it, or studying it like a blueprint? You must become cold here, not cruel, not violent, but precise. Look at your fear the way a surgeon looks at a tumor with ruthless curiosity. Cut into it, examine every layer, find where it came from, who gave it to you, and how it keeps you weak. Then remove what is unnecessary and weaponize what remains. This is the transformation, not in becoming fearless, but in becoming fluent in fear. And now that you hold your fear in your hands, raw, trembling, honest, you must decide what to build with it. Most men, when confronted with this moment, retreat. They reach for comfort. They return to the familiar prisons of routine and mediocrity. They fear their fear. But the Machiavellian man does something different. He turns it into architecture. He builds fortresses from it. He crafts strategies from it. He molds it into rituals of vigilance. Fear, in his world, is not a warning to run. It is a signal to prepare, a call to consolidate resources, to test loyalty, to count every grain of gold and sharpen every blade. Fear makes him tighten the reins and silence the room, and when the time comes, it makes him strike first. You see, control is not the elimination of emotion. It is the ability to isolate it, observe it without drowning in it, and then use it for precise effect. The prince must feel fear but never act on it without calculation. He must appear serene while his mind is engineering escape routes, pressure points, and contingencies. Because those who panic signal vulnerability, and vulnerability invites vultures. It invites traitors to test their luck. It invites allies to renegotiate the terms of their loyalty. The minute you react emotionally, you surrender initiative. But if you can master the art of stillness under pressure, of calm while fire rages around you, you become untouchable. That is the paradox. Fear can destroy a man or crown him. It all depends on whether he owns it or it owns him. Consider the lion. It does not roar at every rustle in the grass. It waits, it watches, it calculates. And when it moves with total conviction, not out of rage, not out of panic, but out of dominance. This is what fear must become in you. A lens, not a leash. Most men use fear to justify their paralysis. They say, I need more time, I'm not ready, what if I fail? But power belongs to those who use that same fear to act before others do, who move when others hesitate, who know that the moment of doubt is the perfect time to advance, because everyone else is frozen. Your enemies stall when they're afraid. That is when you act, not loudly, not foolishly, but with cold, surgical precision. Let me tell you a secret few ever admit. Every throne was first built from fear. Not from hope, not from virtue, from fear. The fear of irrelevance, the fear of weakness, the fear of being ruled by someone less worthy. And in that fear, the first rulers found their will to dominate. They understood what lesser men refused to see. That fear is not your enemy. It is your inheritance. It is your compass in the jungle of human ambition. The man who is not afraid to lose does not fight. The man who fears irrelevance, who fears being forgotten, who fears dying before he has carved his name into the stone of time, that man builds empires. You are not here to be safe. You are not here to be understood. You are here to move through the world with influence. And influence does not come to the pleasant, the agreeable, the harmless. It comes to those who have faced the dragon of their own fear and tamed it into a weapon. You cannot intimidate a man who has made peace with discomfort. You cannot manipulate a man who already understands his own darkness. This is your task, to become so familiar with fear that it no longer surprises you, that when it comes knocking, you are already seated, already watching, already waiting with your strategy in hand. That is the difference between rulers and the ruled. Preparation. They will never teach you this. They will teach you to be brave, to be bold, to be kind. But they will not teach you how to study fear, because fear makes men dangerous. It awakens the dormant parts of the psyche. It creates independence, and independent minds do not obey. They do not kneel. They do not crave approval. They calculate it. So you must teach yourself. You must become your own strategist, your own commander. You must document your fears like an enemy's battle plan, catalog them, name them, predict their patterns, and when the time comes, turn them into your edge, into your fuel, into your legend. The man who does not fear is either lying or dead, and yet you still hear them speak of fear as if it is shameful, as if it is weakness, to be hidden beneath false smiles and empty bravado. But look closer. Those who mock fear the loudest are often its most loyal prisoners. Their entire persona is armor, welded together from denial. They bark loudly because they tremble silently. But the one who admits his fear, who wears it not as a burden but as a blade, that man is already in command. Because when you accept your fear, you stop needing to perform, you stop needing to impress, and that absence of performance is unsettling. Others can no longer read you. You've become a black box in a world of open books, and the unknown always commands respect. Let us go deeper. Fear is not just a teacher, it is a gatekeeper. It separates the real from the fake, the initiates from the imitators. Those who cannot face their fear will never know what they are capable of. They will remain in the safe zones of obedience and mediocrity, forever ruled by those who had the courage to venture into the darkness. This is the truth no one wants to say aloud. Most people are not kept small by others. They are kept small by their refusal to confront what terrifies them. And so they create elaborate justifications. They dress up their avoidance as morality, as humility, as responsibility. But the prince knows better. He sees fear as a throne to be seized, not a trap to be escaped. Every moment of hesitation, every excuse, every delay, it all reveals a man not in control of his fear but ruled by it. And what of pain? Pain and fear are siblings. Wherever one goes, the other follows. But pain is not the punishment. Pain is the currency. It is what you pay to become dangerous, to become clear, to become cold. You cannot purchase dominance with comfort. You must bleed for it, not always in flesh, but in illusion, in pride, in ego. When you feel the sting of fear, ask yourself, what is being stripped away? What comfort am I addicted to? What story have I outgrown? The Machiavellian man welcomes that sting. He knows it is the price of becoming untouchable. He pays it in silence. And when he returns, he is sharper, leaner, more precise. Pain did not break him, it carved him. You must become immune to the manipulations that fear makes possible. Guilt, shame, intimidation. These are tools used against the man who still trembles at the thought of rejection or judgment. But the man who has made peace with being hated, misunderstood, even exiled, he is free. You cannot coerce what you cannot threaten, and you cannot threaten the man who has already walked through fire. This is the final gift of fear, detachment. When you realize fear cannot be avoided, only mastered, you stop chasing approval, you stop begging for safety. You start moving with a stillness that makes others nervous. Not because you are reckless, but because you have already done the inner war, and nothing outside you can match what you've already conquered within. Do not mistake this for cruelty. The man who has mastered fear is not numb, he is disciplined. His mercy is not weakness, it is strategy. He chooses when to spare and when to strike, because he is not governed by panic. He does not flinch when challenged, he does not beg when threatened, he does not collapse when isolated. He observes, he calculates, and then, with absolute resolve, he decides. That is true power, not noise, not rage, but the quiet execution of a long-prepared plan. And every step of that plan was informed by fear, not the kind that freezes, but the kind that forecasts. The kind that maps out escape routes before the fire even begins. So ask yourself now, what would you do if you were no longer ruled by fear, but guided by it? What would change? Who would you stop pleasing? What would you stop tolerating? What ruthless move have you delayed because you were waiting to feel ready? Readiness is a myth. You are not supposed to feel ready. You are supposed to feel terrified and do it anyway, because that's where the threshold is. That's where the mask cracks. That's where your old self dies, and something colder, smarter, and more focused is born. And once you taste that, once you realize you can feel fear and still move, you will never again envy the man who plays it safe. You will pity him. It is time you understood. Fear is not just a reaction, it is an opportunity. It is a doorway that only a few ever dare to open. Most pace in front of it, peeking through the cracks waiting for permission. But the Machiavellian man does not wait. He walks through, fully aware that on the other side is no guarantee, only exposure. But he understands that exposure is where leverage is born. You cannot manipulate what you don't understand, and you cannot understand the game until you've stood inside your own fear and watched what it does to you. What parts of you scream? What parts betray you? What parts lie? That self-exposure is the blueprint. That is how you begin to control not only yourself, but everyone else still running from their own reflection. Your enemies fear exposure. They fear being seen for what they truly are. So they hide in titles, in rituals, in institutions. They wrap themselves in status and tradition. But you will learn to look through all of that, because you have stared into the abyss of your own insecurity and didn't blink. Once you have done that, no mask can deceive you. You recognize fear in the eyes of others instantly, in their over-explaining, in their need for approval, in their emotional overreactions. The frightened man shows his entire hand, just to feel in control. And when you see it, you do not confront, you do not correct, you store the data, you let him talk, you let him try to dominate. And then when the moment arrives, you take everything from him with calm, surgical precision. This is the strategy the world never teaches. Because if people learned to harness fear, they would stop obeying, they would stop conforming, they would become ungovernable. And systems of control do not survive ungovernable minds. That is why fear is framed as something to eliminate, not something to refine. But understand this, fear cannot be erased. It can only be reassigned. Reassigned from paralysis to precision, from avoidance to attack, from chaos to clarity. The moment you redirect your fear toward action, it becomes indistinguishable from power. You no longer shake when challenged, you sharpen. You no longer doubt when alone, you calculate. You no longer retreat when cornered, you strike. Look at history. Every revolutionary, every tyrant, every leader who altered the course of civilization, they were all afraid, but they did not stop. Their fear became a compass. It showed them what to dismantle, what to burn, what to dominate. Fear was the ink they used to write their names into time. You are no different. You have the same primitive machinery, the same raw data, but you have been taught to apologize for it, to soften it, to medicate it. They've trained you to be agreeable, because agreeable men do not build thrones, they applaud them from below. But the man who rewires his fear, who trains it like a beast, who uses it not as a leash but as a whip, that man builds something that lasts beyond his lifetime. You will be tested. You will be isolated. You will be called cold, arrogant, cruel. But these are the words of the fearful, those who saw the threshold and stepped back. They do not hate your ambition. They hate the fact that your fear did not stop you. They see in you what they refuse to become. And so they mock, they moralize, they shame. But their noise is proof that you are already becoming something they cannot manipulate. You must not flinch. Let them talk. Let them stare. Let them misunderstand. And while they perform, you plan. While they panic, you prepare. While they seek comfort, you sharpen your edge. Because comfort is a cage, and you were not made to live in a cage. This is your moment, not tomorrow. Not when it feels safe, now. With fear still beating in your chest, with your doubts still whispering, with your hands still trembling. Now is when you move, because the man who waits for the absence of fear will wait forever. But the man who moves with fear in his veins, who embraces its message, who respects its warning, that man is unstoppable. Not because he is fearless, but because he is fluent. Fluent in the language of war, of ambition, of power. He does not deny the storm, he becomes it. And when the storm breaks, when the world begins to shake and the cowards retreat into silence, you will stand still. Not because you are unafraid, but because you have been here before. Because you have trained in this very chaos. While they prayed for peace, you rehearsed war. While they begged for guarantees, you mastered risk. You did not seek comfort, you sought clarity. And now, as the fragile masks fall from the faces of your enemies, as their illusions shatter in panic, you will not need to speak. Your presence will say everything. Fear, once your master, has become your signature. It is etched into your posture, your gaze, your timing. And those who once laughed at your silence will now study it. Because silence backed by power is more terrifying than any scream. They will not understand how you got here. They will think it was natural talent, luck, some secret they never learned. But you will know the truth. It was fear. It was the 1,000 quiet battles you fought when no one watched. It was the decision to move despite the shaking hands, to speak despite the dry throat, to strike despite the inner voice begging you to wait. This is what separates the rulers from the ruled. Not charm, not popularity, but the willingness to walk alone into the fire and come out colder. And you did not come out untouched. You came out refined. You carry scars like trophies. Not because you are proud of pain, but because you know what it bought you, vision. Now you see them clearly. You see the predictable flinches, the eager compliance, the hunger for validation. You see what people cling to when they're afraid. Reputation, routine, relationships. And in this awareness, you gain advantage. You no longer speak to their words. You speak to their fears. You no longer negotiate with their logic. You negotiate with their survival instinct. This is how power works. It does not appeal to reason. It appeals to necessity. You must become the necessity, the unavoidable option, the one they fear losing more than they fear obeying. That is the position from which true control is exercised, not from charm, but from calibrated dominance. Understand this, your fear was not a curse. It was the initiation. Every lion was once a trembling cub. Every tyrant was once a frightened child. But they did not stay there. They did not freeze. They moved, one claw at a time, and with each calculated motion, they killed a piece of their hesitation, until what remained was not fearlessness, but precision. You do not need to be bold. You need to be prepared. You do not need to roar. You need to outlast. That is the Machiavellian path. Not a loud rebellion, but a silent evolution. And now you have crossed the threshold. You are no longer the one who fears the fire. You are the one who lights it. Others will come to you now, curious, intimidated, confused. They will want the benefits of your strength without paying your price. They will ask for your secrets. Do not give them too much. Power diluted is power wasted. Let them earn it. Let them burn a little. Let them confront their own demons in solitude. Because until they do, they will never wield anything but borrowed influence. And borrowed influence is as fragile as the ego it protects. But yours is built on something else, something earned, something irreversible. You did not inherit control. You created it from friction. You forged it from fear. So now, you do not wait. You do not explain. You do not apologize. You move, like a shadow at the edge of the room, like a whisper no one dares to question, like a name spoken only in warnings. Because you no longer react to fear, you command with it. You no longer chase peace. You dictate its terms. You no longer need to be understood. You only need to be obeyed. And in this final transformation, you become the one thing fear cannot touch, necessary. If you've made it this far, it means fear is no longer just an enemy to you. It's a signal, a weapon, and a guide. You've already taken the first step most people will never take, facing the mirror without flinching. You've realized that fear is not weakness. It's the raw material of strength. And if you can stand with it, shape it, and let it sharpen you, there is nothing that can stop you. So tell me in the comments, will you let fear rule you, or will you rule with it? If this message hit something deep inside you, write, I master my fear. Let's see how many of us are ready to rise with clarity, power, and discipline. And remember, the next video is waiting to forge you even sharper. Watch it. You need it more than you think. I'll see you there.